Today's lesson is going to be a review of long division made by me, Miss Markison. To remember how to divide, we use the mnemonic, does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? And this is how we're going to remember because it's going to walk us through the steps. When you are doing long division, you're first going to divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, and repeat. Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers? That will help you remember DMSCBR. Divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, repeat. Let's give it a try. Our first problem is 837 divided by 3. So we need to make sure we know how to set this up in a long division problem in order to solve that. The first thing you should know is that the first number here always goes inside of our house. So if I draw kind of our little house shape, 837 is going to go right inside of there. And then the second number, or 3, goes on the outside. Now, I kind of think of this as your first number being your older sibling or you, and you run to the house and you're the first one to the house. So you get inside and then you hold that door shut so your brother or sister can't get inside. So that's the goofy way I always remember. One thing that is helpful to remember too, to work on our vocab, the number inside the house is what we call the dividend. Okay. The number outside the house is going to be our divisor. And when we get our answer at the end, that is always going to be our quotient. All right, so that's just a little vocab practice for us. I'm going to leave those on there so as I use them, you'll know what they are. And then let's start going through our process of long division. Okay, step 1 is always to divide. And we're going to take this number, we're going to go place value by place value and divide piece by piece. So the first thing I'm looking at is simply 8. Some students like when there's lines here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of draw in some lines. That tends to help students stay organized. Now, you do not have to do this. If you wanted to, you could turn your lined paper sideways so that you naturally have those lines there. But I'm going to leave those lines here for this problem just so you can kind of see how I'm going to line everything up. So I'm trying to divide 8 by 3. So I asked myself, how many times does 3 go into 8? Well, I know that 2 3s can go into 8. Or if I do 2 3s, I get 6. If I do 3 3s, I do 9, and that's too much. So that's why I know I'm going to do 2. 3 times 2, so multiplying our divisor with this first number in our quotient. 2 times 3 is 6, and that's the multiplying step. So if I kind of come over here and check off, I've divided, and then I've multiplied, okay? 8 divided by 3 is 2, 3 times 2 is 6. Now I'm going to subtract, okay? Does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers raw? So we're on the subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. The check, or our cheese here, okay, what does that mean? Well, you are always checking is after you've subtracted, is this number less than your divisor? Because if it isn't less than your divisor, you did not divide enough, okay? You could have taken more out. So since we have 2 and our divisor is 3, we're good to go. We can continue on because it passes the check. The B for burgers is bring down. So I'm going to bring down the next number in my dividend. Okay, so I brought down the 3. So now instead of 2, I have 23. And then we just repeat the entire process, which just means come back up to the beginning and do it again. So how many times does 3 go into 23? Okay, you can kind of think of your multiples. And I know that 7 3s can go into 23 because 3 times 7 is 21. I'm going to subtract them. You divide, you multiply, you subtract. 23 minus 21 is 2. I check again, is my difference down here less than my divisor? In which case it is. So then I'm going to bring down, check, and then bring down my next number, my dividend, which is a 7. How many times can 3 go into 27? Hey, well, that would be exactly 9 times. So I can subtract 27. I got all the way to my answer of 0, which is what I want. We always want to get to that remainder of 0 down here at the bottom. So my final answer is going to be 279. 873 divided by 3 is 279. Divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, and repeat. Now you try a problem. Okay, I want you to try this problem. Give you a little bit bigger divisor, but definitely one I still think you can do. So, set the problem up, solve it, let's see what you get. Okay, so the first thing I would do is I'm going to take 2,964 and put it inside the house. 12 will go outside, and then now as I divide, I'm just going to do it just one number at a time. So that's actually why I've kind of kept this hamburger here, is I'm going to use that as kind of a cover-up. So the first thing I always look at is just how many times is 12? Go into 2. And hopefully you said, well, 0 times because 12 is bigger. So I'm going to put a 0 up here. Some students like to put an X there, which would be fine as well. I do think it's important that all students make sure you put some sort of placeholder there. So next I'm going to look at how many times does 12 go into 29. And I know that 12 can go into that 2 times because 12 times 2 is 24. So I've divided, I've multiplied. I'm going to subtract 29 minus 24 is 5. Checking real quick, is our difference smaller than our divisor, which it is, so we can continue on. I'm going to bring down my next number, so I have to slide this over. I can bring down that 6, and now I have 56. How many times does 12 go into 56? So if I kind of think of my multiples of 12, I would find that it's going to go in 4 times because 12 times 4 is 48. Now, let's say you didn't know that math fact perfectly. I could easily come over here and just kind of do some math and kind of work it out and go, oh, okay, that's, the one that's going to work. Having a scratch area over here is a very good idea. Okay, so I'm going to subtract now, and I know that 56 minus 8. Now, let's say I can't solve that in my head. I can borrow, so my 5 would become 4. This 6 would become 16. Okay, so 16 minus 8 is 8, and 4 minus 4 would be 0. So I just did my subtract. I'm going to check. Okay, is 8 smaller than 12? Yes, it is, so we can keep going. So I'm going to bring down my next number, which is a 4. Bring it down here. So now I have 84. And then you might have to do some guessing and checking and some multiplying off to the side. But ultimately, I find that 12 times 7 is 84. So when I subtract, I get to my remainder of 0. My final answer is 247. This concludes our basic review of long division. Our next video is going to talk about when you don't get a remainder of 0, when you actually still have numbers to divide by, and how can we work with that. Have a good one.